I just got something that I've wanted for years. In front of me are all the parts to assemble my own library ladder. I've wanted one of these ever since I was a kid because one of my favorite movies was Willy Wonka, and I remember seeing the Candyman slide across that ladder. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I've been looking for an excuse to build one for years, and finally I think I have it. Well, welcome to the dirty little secret of home fab, is that this room is always a mess. It is the second garage. It's a huge extra amount of space that I have in my workshop, and it's so underutilized because it fills up with crap. I still have a bunch of stuff left over from the house reno, walls that are unfinished, and look at this. I've got a blank white wall sitting right here that's completely unutilized. For years, I've wanted to build some storage up here, basically carry this storage around and organize this storage again because it's filled up with crap. I think a library ladder would be brilliant in this space because I have so much ceiling space. This is 12-foot ceilings. I could store things up high on the ladder, access them when I need them, but when I don't need them, they're far away. And I could also use the ladder to access the mezzanine, which up until now, I've had to pull out these folding ladders every single time. Either I am coming up with some excuses to build a library ladder, or this is a brilliant solution. Time will tell, but first, I've got to clean this space up. Being in this room genuinely stresses me out, and it's partly because it's just gotten completely out of control. And yes, if you've watched this channel before, I have organized this space before and I've failed. And part of that was because we had a wall nearly collapse in here. I'll post the video in the description below if you want more details, but it's never been the same. And I really want to put this place back together. It is my wife's studio as well as my welding shop. I don't really weld that much anymore, and unfortunately my wife's studio is so covered in stuff that she can't actually use it. So while I'm very excited about the library ladder, I'm mostly excited to rein in this and find a space that both Ashley and I can use consistently and have a system that's easy to organize so it is a usable space again. Another goal of mine in the new year is to use a lot more of the materials that I already have on hand, and these 2x12s have been stashed up here ever since the wall got rebuilt. They were leftovers from sistering in the floor joists, and now I'm gonna use them to make the shelves that are gonna go up on that big white wall. I don't need a 2x12, but I could use 3 10-foot 2x4s, which I can get out of this one board. This board is definitely cupped, it's super wonky, and so I need to be really careful when I cut it on the table saw. It started to bind towards the end of the cut, so rather than push it all the way through the saw, I pulled it back out and grabbed my Suizan Japanese pull saw to finish it off by hand. Ripping it twice gave me 3 2x4s, and I looked through the group to find the wonkiest one, and that's the one that I'm gonna cut into cross pieces. I set up a stop block at my miter station and started cutting. That one board gave me just enough pieces to put cross braces every 24 inches, which is perfect. It's plenty of strength, and it'll also make the sheathing really easy. Using a nail gun makes it really quick to assemble things like this. It's essentially wall framing, so it makes sense to use a framing nailer. I tried my best to keep the pieces nice and square as I nailed them off, but the finished shelf was pretty twisted. Well, it's not flat. I'm hoping that on the wall I might be able to bring it into square, but we'll see, we'll figure it out. I brought the first shelf into the garage and you can see how it works now. It's essentially a framed up mini wall that gets screwed into the studs. I had a level line on the wall and I kept following that to make sure that it stayed straight. And I don't use just regular screws. I use these structural anchors. These are 4 inches long. They are super strong. They're rated to hold up a lot of weight. I'll post a link down below, but just make sure if you're doing this sort of thing, don't use regular screws. These structural screws suck it to the wall, and when it did that, it revealed another problem, was that I forgot to put toenails into the framing. So it was pulling the whole thing sort of away from the nails. So I shot in a couple toenails to make sure that it was nice and safe, and I wasn't able to fully get the twist out of it. You can see the sloping back corner, the back left corner, and the front right corner was doing the same thing. I'm not worried about the back left, that'll be fine, but the front right, I need to make sure that that's nice and level. Okay, yeah, I think I need some sort of column here because it's just slumping too far and... Wait, wait a second. I might have the perfect thing, hold on. Oh my God. Half an inch off, that's it. And it's half an inch too short, which means it can go underneath there and I can shim it up. Question is, do I like this thing being over there? 36. All right, well, doesn't block the outlet. That's like perfect. This might just be meant to be. I guess the benefit of having a lot of crap is that you might have exactly the right thing to solve a problem. This metal cabinet was perfectly the right size, but unburying it is the downside of having a lot of crap. This project is definitely making me look closely at the hoarder side of my personality. I really need to keep that in balance and make sure I don't have too much stuff. As makers, we tend to collect things because we never know when it's going to be useful, and oftentimes it is. But at some point, you have so much stuff that you can't use the space that you need to make other things, and that's a big problem. So I was actually able to clear out this entire cabinet, put it in a more useful spot. My K&S metals now have a home, and the cabinet is now full of things that I need to use on a regular basis. But that's where the organizational brilliance kind of stopped, because I tried to Tetris my way in with the stuff that I already have, and this steel table is just so big, it really doesn't fit the space very well. I don't know if I like that. It sits too far out. Okay, let me think on that. In the meantime, I got a lot left to do and a lot of shelves to build before I can install that library ladder. And once again, I'm using some scrap material here. This Relia ply I bought kind of accidentally. I thought I was gonna use it for a project. That project never happened. And I've had 8 sheets of it sitting in my storage forever. It's not high enough quality to use for furniture, but it's perfect for a project like this, except that it's 1/4 inch thick. I'm pretty sure if I put something super heavy on it, it's gonna break clean through. So I decided to double it up and make it into 1/2 inch, which actually works for me because it uses up even more of the plywood. It feels pretty strong. I know it'll hold the bins, no problem, but I'm more curious if it'll hold my body weight, because I would love to patch that drywall and it'd be easiest just to use this as a platform. Oh, yeah. That's no problem. And now I can reach up here. Yeah. Ugh. Oh yeah, plenty strong enough. I'll be able to patch this. That's great. The bear's gonna have to go. Well, it's time for drywall, and you guys know it's not my favorite thing, but I really need to stop putting this off. It's the first of the year. One of my goals is to make this a nice, clean space, and this patchwork drywall just isn't cutting it. The original owners never mudded any of the drywall that they installed, and it's all gotten discolored and gross, and gradually, as I've done more and more updates in the shop, I have piecemealed put together some of the drywall. When we tore out the wall in Ashley's studio, I had already done the drywall work, and then we had to tear that out. So we replaced that drywall, but I never mudded it. I mudded everything that I could reach, let it dry, sanded it back, and then painted over the surface with several coats of primer. While I don't like this work, the results made it worth it. Okay, I've got everything mudded, sanded, and primed on this side of the shop, the ceiling on that half, as well as this back wall. But there's still this ceiling right here, which I can't get to with all this crap in the way. So I'm gonna have to restart and start working on that ceiling. My buddy Josh is coming over. He's gonna help me hang the drywall. Although I obviously have to move things over and over again, I'm slowly starting to figure out where they're gonna live permanently, which turned out to be kind of nice in the end. I'm just gonna put my end down. Okay. That's the wall. Once I got the space cleared out, my buddy Josh came over to help me hang the drywall. And Josh was really instrumental when we repaired the rotten wall, which is the reason why this whole ceiling has been open for so long. He's the one that helped me hammer in the rim joist from outside to replace the rotten one. It was a awful job, and I'm sorry, Josh, that I always call you for the worst jobs. I really appreciate it, man. I'm so glad to finally have this ceiling patched up. I've been thinking about it for so long, and it completely transformed the space to have it mudded, sanded, and freshly painted. The nice thing about having a week and a half of pure drywall work is that it gave me a lot of time to design the space, and I was able to come up with some pretty clever solutions to building this sort of stack of shelves. The first shelf that I built is what I'm calling the base shelf, and that's going to be where I store a bunch of plastic bins. There's going to be a virtually identical shelf above that's a little bit longer that I'm calling the top shelf, and that's what the ladder needs it attached to, and that needs to be at a very specific height that's stated in the kit. When I was doing the math, I realized that there's actually room for a shelf in between, and this I'll call the mid shelf. This is going to be just tall enough to hold standard size sustainers, which is awesome. And it also is going to be half the depth, which is going to allow me to open the lower bins without having to take them all the way down. So I cut out a couple of these angled brackets, and they have strategically placed dado slots that'll receive a panel later on that I can put that shelf in. They'll get attached to both the bottom and the top shelf using pocket holes. Since the design for these brackets came late in the game, I need to add in some reinforcement underneath to catch the middle brackets. They need to be in a very specific spot so that I have the right spacing for the bins that I have and the sustainers that I have as well. And as you can see behind me, I have quite a few sustainers that are in need of storage. For the most part, the top shelf was built exactly the same as the bottom shelf, except for a couple exceptions. After nailing it together, I added a screw into each of the studs so that it wouldn't back out again. I also put that blocking in the shop so that I wouldn't have to deal with it up in the air. Once it was assembled, I could bring it into the second garage and attach it again with the pocket holes. I had about 7 more feet before I reached the corner, and I figured I might as well make this shelf as long as possible. And this construction started to become pretty routine at this point. I built another mini wall in the same fashion, just a little bit shorter. I also put the structural elements in exactly where I needed the support from the brackets down below, because I'm going to be adding one more shelf below this. It was at this point that my woodworking got in the way of my framing, because I have very tight tolerances on everything, and it didn't quite fit. At first, I tried a mallet, but that wasn't doing it. So I switched to a multi-tool. But I realized that I was just making a mess. Eventually I realized that it was late and I just called it a night. I'm gonna sleep on that one. It's the end of the day. I gotta make it shorter. I couldn't easily disassemble any part of this because I nailed it together, but fortunately I was able to get it up on my miter saw and cut it from both sides. I removed as much as I could without getting to the nails, and hopefully that's enough to get it to fit. The shelf went in with a bit of persuading, and then I could screw it in from each side and into the studs. The base shelf is split by the doorway, and in order to maximize storage, I decided to make another base shelf on the other side. I was easily able to put this together with the scraps I had left over, and using some creative engineering, I was able to hold it in place while I screwed it in. Now it's time to add in the middle shelving, and I cut a couple pieces of 1/2-inch plywood and pushed those into the slots. With those shelves in, I can turn my attention back to the top shelf and add the sheathing. Now it was looking a little bit rough, to be honest. I didn't like the exposed 2x4 framing, so I cut up some strips of 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood and nailed that to the outside. I put a little bit of an overhang on it so it's covering up the framing a bit, and I think it looks a lot better. That's so awesome. Oh my God, I'm so happy. This room just suddenly felt like it opened up. Like I've got like room in here to work. You can see I mocked up a workbench over here. Really excited about that. I don't know if I'm gonna get into like the tool wall and everything in this video, but I wanna make sure and get the library ladder installed. So that's the next step, is to break out the kit and start assembling the library ladder. This kit comes from my friends at Rockler, and I have looked through the Rockler catalog I don't know how many thousands of times in my life, and I've always seen this kit and wanted to buy it. It's super modular, and it comes with a whole bunch of different parts, which we're going to go through. The first step is to set up the railing, and for that I'm going to be using a laser level. I got the laser dialed in on the spot that I needed, and then I can start hanging brackets. These brackets are pretty cool. They're designed for the railing to slip over the top of them. The only thing about them is they're a little awkward to install because you have to go through a hole in order to get to the other hole. And I decided that I just wanted to screw in the first screw first so that I already had threads in there. And once I did that, I could kind of weave it in between the two portions of the bracket, and then I could screw it through that hole, and that worked out really well. The second one, I just used an awl to make sure that I had the spot that I needed so it was nice and centered and it wouldn't tip the bracket in a weird direction, and then I screwed it in from the outside. It felt super strong after it was screwed in. Now it's time to move on to the second bracket. The instructions say to space it out between 32 and 36 inches. I went with 32 because I had plenty of brackets, and I attached that using a laser level to make sure that it was at the right height. At this point, I thought it'd be easiest to slide the first bar in, and you'll see in a second kind of how this works. It has a slot down the bottom of it, and it slots over the top of the brackets. I could then slot in bracket number 3, and this slid in really easily, so I knew that I was staying nice and level and that the brackets weren't twisted at all. I attached bracket number 4 and bracket number 5, and then slid on the second rail. This one definitely put up more of a fight than the first one, and I think that's probably because bracket number 5 is slightly twisted. But in the instructions, it says that you can smack it with a hammer, so that's what I did. Where the two tracks meet, they get a part called a track union. This is a smaller diameter pipe with a little key on the bottom of it and some screws to tighten up so it doesn't go anywhere. This is what I'm saying, it's a really modular system. You could technically make this however long you wanted to. I tightened up those 2 screws on the bottom, and then I can move on to the last 2 brackets and the last piece of track. The last track is a little shorter, so I measured it out and cut it down with an angle grinder. The last thing to do to finish off the track is to add in these end caps. These plug in, they've got a little rubber gasket on the inside, and as the screw tightens, it widens in the hole and it prevents the ladder from careening off the side of the railing. And now finally we can get to the part that I've wanted to do from the very beginning, which is assemble this ladder kit. The kit comes with these vertical rails that are pre-drilled in most locations. There's a couple holes that I'm gonna have to drill, and it's bull-nosed, but it's not fully sanded. It's pretty darn close. So I decided to give it a quick sand, and it is unfinished, so I had to apply a finish. I decided, since it's the shop, and I have a lot of red oak in my shop on my table saw and on my router table that is just finished with shop wax, and this is Bumbleshoot's shop wax. I use this for everything, and it gives a nice looking finish. It'll keep it clean, and it's easy to touch up. The first hole that I need to drill is at the very top, and it's for a spindle. Now they have a punch mark there, so I don't need to measure it, but I do want to make sure it's nice and square. And since these are so long, I didn't want to load it up on my drill press. So I used this steel drill guide, which is super handy. I'll post a link down below, and it was able to get a nice square hole. The spindle was a good hammer-in fit, and it comes with these cap screws that you screw into the side. They have Loctite on them, and so they're going to hold it together and not come apart. The kit I ordered is their vintage kit, so it looks kind of like a Victorian-style ladder. These look like cast iron treads, but they're actually aluminum, so they're super light. I was kind of all thumbs on the first go because I didn't know how to put these cap nuts in. They were a really tight fit, which is what you want, but it did require a hammer to get them in and a lot of patience. The first tread took a while, but I figured it out eventually, and when I got to the second tread, I had a better idea of how to assemble it. Rather than connecting the right side and then connecting the left side, I instead connected the top 2 bolts, and that allowed me to hold it into place and then rotate it down so that the tread is held in place when I get to the more awkward bolts. Now that I figured out my system, it went a lot smoother and I could make steady progress putting in all the treads. Well, until I got to the last tread. What? This is the last tread. But there's another set of holes. Oh no, what did I do? Huh. Oh no. This is the 8-foot ladder set. That's a 9-foot ladder. I changed it to 9 feet at the last minute. I wonder if I can just order one step. Oh well, I'll finish it off and then I'll figure that out. This one was definitely on me. I didn't read close enough that you buy the 8-foot ladder set and then you buy extra steps depending on if you have the 9 or the 10-foot ladder. So I'm out of step, but I'm leaving the top one off. We can attach the rest of the hardware, and the next thing is to attach the hooks that hold the ladder to the rail. These are pretty clever because they slide up and down, which allows you to tuck the ladder up to the wall when you don't need it and pull it out when you do need it. I'll show you how that works in a second, but first let's move it into the other room because the ladder is essentially assembled. It needs another tread and it needs its wheels, but first I gotta test it out on the railing. Okay, now I'm getting really excited, but what's a library ladder without wheels? And in the instructions, it says that you need to hang the ladder in order to set the wheels. So you basically set the wheels into place, level out the treads, and then make the holes on the ladder that you need with the wheels squared up. There's a second screw on the back side, and then you just repeat it on the other side with the second wheel. Oh my God, it's so smooth. Wow. That is way too much fun. I cannot stop laughing. But there's still a lot of stuff left to do. I don't think you need to see any of that, so I'm gonna turn off the camera. This will probably take me a couple hours, but for you, just a matter of seconds. That is never gonna get old. This is so much fun. Oh my God, and it's, you know, it's totally useful. Like you can get up here, you can pull a bin out, you can slide along, get to the bin that you want, pull that bin out, grab the part out that you need, pop that bin back in, and you're good to go. It's also great for the mezzanine. I never had a permanent way to access the mezzanine. And look at this. I put a little lounge up here, including a library, because what's a library ladder without a library? A couple other cool features that I really like, one second, is that you can lift it and tuck it in basically flat to the wall. So, you know, and it still rolls like that. I can live over here when I don't want it, but I think I'm just gonna want it out all the time because it's so freaking cool. Oh my God, I'm just like a little kid with this thing. The library ladder is, well, it's so freaking cool. But it's not the main thing that got done here. The main thing is this, just opening up the space, making it usable again. I've gone through everything that was in here and I've cleared out a bunch of stuff, and what has stayed is very accessible. And now Ashley has her pottery studio, her workbench back, and she can start working again. I am gonna be putting up shelving over here, and I'm gonna be building out this workbench in the next video. I've got some cool designs for that, but you're gonna have to subscribe and stay tuned for that. That'll be out soon. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you as always to my Patreon supporters. You guys are the best. This last month, we talked about shop renovation and New Year's resolutions, and we're gonna be moving into February with another live. We do lives every single month, so come join us on the Patreon and hang out.